his mother, Loreleno, passed away when he was very young, 4 or 5 years old. The stepmother, things didn't work out so well, so the kids went to live with a relative. His father was a teacher, as well as a businessman, one of the founders of House of Yon. So my father-in-law continued that. He used to give, he actually gave some classes to men and women in the cheder. Unfortunately, lo alenu, Jamie's and her brother Morris's mother, his first wife, Sylvia, she passed away about 14 years into their marriage. So my brother Morris was bar mitzvah. It was bar mitzvah, and she was very sick at the bar mitzvah. She passed away a short time later, and Jamie was 10 and Morris was 13 at the time. My father-in-law remarried Gail 6 years after that. They spent the last 45 years together, and thank God they had a beautiful marriage together. My father-in-law was very handsome, big blue eyes, very bright, incredibly bright, knew the details about history, about the community remarkably. He'd tell you a story, for example, and he'd say that they had the meeting in 1943, December 22nd. It was a little cold, a little rainy. It was in so-and-so's office, XYZ, West 35th Street, on the 3rd floor. And the office was like a very, very bright. A beautiful person, really. And just never lacked anything, never lacked anything. And whatever his challenges were, he never showed it. He never felt it. He was really a naturally happy person. And he got sick not long ago. They tried to treat the cancer a little bit, and then that they couldn't treat it. He's older, and they couldn't treat it. And even up to a month ago, he was still good. And after that, it was very, very fast, unfortunately. So we have a lifetime of fantastic memories of a fine, happy, content man that built a beautiful family. So I want to talk a little bit about Mordechai, as we know him from the Megillah. And with the backdrop of something that we've mentioned before, and that is that a person is matched up with the name that suits them, the name that sets a direction for them. And we've touched on this before, how if there's a name that's queued up, for example, a name that's teed up, you know, we name after the father, whatever it might be. So the neshama that fits that name is sent to that person. It's not random. So a Mordechai in this case can never be anything but a Mordechai. And a Sarah can never be anything but a Sarah, and so on. And the name really is a portal to the person's life script. As we know, sometimes a person can exceed his life potential or hers, in which case, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us, the names were expanded. The names were adapted to a greater trajectory. So Avram, who was meant to be the father of the Jewish nation, God adds a hey to his name and expands his name to become Avraham, because it became clear to God, so to speak, that this man couldn't only impact the Jewish people, could impact way beyond the Jewish people. And therefore, he was no longer Avram, the father of a nation, a monotheistic nation, but he was Abraham, the father of all the people all over the world who would embrace HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He becomes that. So he started as an Avram and moved beyond it. Hosea started as a Hosea and becomes Yehoshua. When Moshe Rabbeinu realizes that there's more to him than even the greatness he had achieved to that point. We say that, so the reality is that a name is it's a path, it's a projection, it's a blessing, it's a direction for a person, and a person it's behooved upon us to learn about us. I know I'm Reuven, and when you start,
Heidi. Okay.
sorry,
F-O-R-O-I-S, last name is Ice, and Ice from he is and David Wise and yellow.
so when you study Reuven, one of Yaakov's sons, and you see his successes and his failures, I think I line up pretty well with that in terms of the challenges and opportunities in my own life. So a name means a lot. So what I wanted to do today is a little bit about Mordechai, based on the pasuk in the Megillah where he's introduced. It's a fantastic pasuk laden with a lot of very beautiful words that will know and own, because these words really apply all over the Tanakh. So the pasuk starts with the following: Ish. I'll read the pasuk and then we'll develop it together. Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira. On the surface, it says that a Jewish man was in the capital city of Shushan. Ushmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shim'i ben Kish ish Yemineh. And his name was Mordechai, the son of someone named Yair, the son of someone named Shim'i, the son of someone named Kish. And in all of that, after we told you his father, grandpa, great, let's say, he was Ish Yemini. So when you look at this verse, you say, wow, it's laden with massive hints about him. Now, when we study this about names, we study more on the Kabbalistic side. And in that respect, we reference the Gaon Mivilna, the great Gaon of the, he lived in the 1700s, had a strong Kabbalistic orientation, and the Al-Sheikh HaKadosh, who had a very, very strong lean in that direction. And they say as follows. First of all, the word Ish. When we see the word Ish in a pasuk, man, it doesn't mean simply a man lived. It means the man. Ish means somebody exceptional. If you see someone called out as an Ish in the Chumash, in the Tanakh, it means this is an exceptional person. Sit up straight, because we're about to introduce you to someone who you see rarely in life. So he's introduced as Ish Yehudi, a Jewish man. Now, one second. Everybody in the story that we're talking about, that we're highlighting, is Jewish. So when we say Ish Yehudi, a Jewish man, knowing that the term Ish is a big word for a very special person, a noteworthy person, then what do we need the Yehudi for? And based on the commentaries that we're focused to, they say as follows, that Mordechai was the Yehudi, the Jew, meaning he understood what Achashverosh was trying to do. He understood the forces against the Jewish people in Babylon at that time, and he was the fighter. So let's see, what were the forces at that time against the Jewish people? They were fantastic. Achashverosh Harasha, the evil king Ahasuerus, what did he want to do? He had a brilliant plan. His plan was, I'm not going to attack the Jewish people directly. I'm going to just supplant their core values with other core values. If the Jewish people's core values are learning Torah, doing mitzvot, doing chesed, that kind of thing, you know what? I'm just going to move the needle enough where their core values become other things, but they continue to do that. So if my core values, i.e., where I primarily spend my time and effort, is in my career, in my enjoyment, nothing wrong with that. But what happens is Ahasuerus moves the dial where people's primary focus that was originally on, let's say, their Torah learning, their chesed, their families, becomes moved. Their primary focus becomes career. It becomes livelihood. Nothing wrong with those. But those now become primary. So when those become primary, everything changes for the Jewish people. They went from Jerusalem with the temple, which was recently destroyed within the last 70 years of this story, where their primary focus was God and the land and the people. They're now in a foreign land in Babylon, so they don't have the temple anymore. They don't have the land anymore. They don't have the convergence of rabbis like they did. So they're already somewhat lost, somewhat unanchored. And now Ahasuerus comes on the scene. It's this beautiful 180-day party. Was there really a 180-day party? Probably not. But what happened was he takes all the waking hours, right? We're awake about half the hours, let's say, or more. He takes all of the waking hours that people have and he switches their focus. Okay, so far? So Mordechai comes on the scene and he says, listen, we have to move things back to a God-centered life. We have to move things back to a Torah-centered life where, of course, we earn a living. And of course, we enjoy ourselves. But the central focus is our spiritual growth. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to build. And I'll tell you, and I hope nobody ever experiences it. So on Sunday, when my father-in-law took literally his last breath, so I was the only male there, other than his grandson, who was a young man. So even though I'm a Kohen, I stayed with him. I closed his eyes, I closed his mouth, I straightened his limbs as the Torah, as obligates you to do. And then I sat there and I prayed. I had done the Vidoy and all the appropriate prayers with him, literally from Thursday night and then again on Shabbat. And we covered him up, and the Hatzalah came, and they confirmed that he had passed. And then the hospice nurses came, not for an hour or so, and they wrote the death certificate. And then the Chavra Kadisha came to take him to the home where he would be prepared and he would be watched before the burial. And I helped them carry him out. And what I experienced was something I didn't experience it with either of my parents, thankfully. And I don't think I'll ever forget it in my life. It was horrible. It was horrible. What I experienced was that his body had become like a rock, like a heavy piece of wood. That was it. Nothing. Just like a very stiff piece of wood. That was it. And I don't understand it. I understand it, but I honestly don't understand it. No, once his neshama was gone, once his soul was gone, there's nothing. It's nothing. How could it be nothing? Our bodies are important. We spend so much time caring for our bodies and beautifying our bodies and clothing our bodies. How could it be that within minutes, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. When I picked up his body and it felt like I was lifting a heavy beam, I said, how could this be? It's not possible. Nothing. It was cold like a rock. And as a Kohen, I probably would never have experienced it. And it was horrible. And I hope nobody does. But what it made more true than ever before is that when the physical thing ends, it ends quick and it ends hard. And if there's not a real eternal story, then there's nothing. Because once the neshama leaves the body, and we know this, and we say this umpteen times, and all, we know all this. But until I touched it myself, I honestly didn't get it. I really, truly didn't get it. And I hope nobody ever does, because it's so shocking, and it's so confusing that there's absolutely nothing. So when Mordechai Hayehudi comes on the scene in the time of Hashverosh, he witnesses that the focus of the Jewish people moved too much to the practical, too much to the physical. Again, they weren't doing bad things at the time. The Jews were not worshiping idols. They were not eating unkosher. They were not. What they were doing was much more of a challenge because they had moved their focus, and it meant that their priorities changed. And the reality is, one of the reasons that we read Megillat Esther forever is because as people living in a physical place, we're always going to struggle with those challenges. And that's why, not to give a commercial, but that's why I really endorse everything that is being done with the Hayesara program, in that let people reconnect. We have to reconnect to the spiritual side. That's the side that has value. And everything else is infill. And what we want to be doing is we want to build our days with the overwhelming majority of our time on the spiritual, on love and relationships, on chesed, on learning Torah, on growing spiritually, on discovery spiritually. And then, yeah, okay, then great. Let's all do great financially. And it's the biggest challenge because Ahasuerus didn't die. And his efforts were not fully beaten, not yet. And that's why the Megillah is still so relevant. And that's why Purim is still so relevant. So who comes on the scene? One great man. There were plenty of religious people in town, plenty of great rabbis. One man comes on the scene. One person who would literally not bend. And we call him an Ish, a man of greatness. And we call him the Jew, because he was the person, even relative to all the other great rabbis at the time. He was the person who had his values where they needed to be. And where was he? He was in Shushan Habirah. He was in the capital city of Babylon, of the Babylonian Empire of Shushan. Now, why does that mean something? Who cares? We care because it's called, Shushan is called in this verse, the capital city. Shushan Habirah, Shushan the capital. And the only other time that the word capital is used in all of the 24 books of the Tanakh is in reference to Jerusalem. So when the word capital is used here, it means this was the center of everything at that point. For a limited period of time, not forever, but this was the center of everything. Okay, so far? Everybody's very quiet. I'm going over. Yeah, okay. Okay. Ushmo, and his name, We know when we see the term Shemo or name, it means his actions. Shemo doesn't mean name specifically. It means what we call him based on what he built, based on how he lives. So Shemo Mordechai, the word Mordechai, what would you say? Any ideas on what the word Mordechai might mean? Any thoughts on that? What might Mordechai mean? Anybody do any study or research on that? So we're saying Mordechai is an acronym. It's a combination of two words, and it means Mr. Freedom, Mordechai, or Mor Chofesh, or Mor Chofshi. It means the man who would bring freedom. So when we're introduced to Mordechai, it's not just an introduction. He's the Jew in the city, and he's the person who would bring about change. Shemo, his actions to date, make him the freedom fighter.
Ricky, is the name of Chai, is that Hashem in there? Mordechai, is that?
It could be. Nice. It could be. That's very nice. Love that.
All
think
right.
that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. That the yod at the end could represent that what he's fighting for, he's the freedom fighter for God's world. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
I love that. Ben Yair, Ben Shimei, Ben Kish, Shimini. They list 4 of his fathers, grandfathers, where he had 15 or so. So this champion of freedom that is selectively lineaged, only selectively lineaged. We don't reference all his grandfathers, only 4. And the question becomes why? And the rabbis that we're talking about who say that this story, to Diane's point, we're not talking about the freedom fighter of then for God, the fighter for God of then. We're talking about the forever fight for freedom, the Mordechai in everybody. These fathers or grandfathers who were referenced specifically because of who they were and what their names mean. So Ben Yair, some of you might remember, what does the word or mean? Anybody remember what or means?
The Torah, right? Like intellectual light.
Fantastic, perfect. Intellectual knowledge, intellectual light, knowledge, great. So if Mordechai is the son of Yair, I'll explain it in a minute. Yair is the person who brings the light. So we're saying that Mordechai is the son of the person who brings the intellectual knowledge, i.e., that's his lineage. That's who he is. That's incredible. Ben Yair, the person who brings the or, the person who brings the light. Fantastic. And then there's another reference, Ben Shimei. What does the Shmoa mean? Shema Yisrael means what?
To listen.
No, doesn't mean listen. Shmoa means what?
So,
Here?
so I have here my notes from last Purim class, and it says hear and understand the people.
Understand. Fantastic.
Oh.
It means hear and understand. Great.
But
Hear
I cheated
and
because I had my
understand.
notes.
Perfect. So the Mordechai, this freedom fighter, is the son of the one with great knowledge, the son of the one with great understanding, Ben Kish. Rachel, you remember this term? You have it in your notes? Ben Kish?
I have it. It says
What is
banging
it?
on the doors of heaven, prayer. That's
Oh,
what I wrote.
froze.
Oh, it says, my notes say banging on the doors of heaven, prayer.
Fantastic, Kish. Banging
Got it?
on the doors of heaven. What does that mean when somebody is banging on the doors of heaven?
They're persistent?
They're persistent, and what else? Very nice. And what else does it mean? When they're banging on the doors of heaven. What would you
They're like
say?
they're close also.
They're close, yeah, and
Hopeful? No.
are they afraid?
No.
No, they're not afraid. They're going right up to God and they're confronting God and saying, wait a second, your people are alienated. Your people are distant. You better do something, God. What does a person do when he's banging or she on the gates of heaven? He's demanding action. He's demanding intervention. God, we can't do it ourselves. You got to break us out. You got to help us. I'll be the freedom fighter. I'll be the one who brings the knowledge. I'll struggle with the understanding to make my knowledge really stick. But let me tell you something, God. If you don't get involved in this, we're sunk. Now, where do you see that before with other people, other great people? Where do you see it?
Abraham,
Beautiful. How do you see it with Abraham?
when he was fighting to Sidon, no?
Right. And what does he tell God? He
He
tells,
said,
I disagree with your psak. I
right.
disagree with your edict. I don't accept it. You're not giving the people a chance. You're calling yourself the God of justice? That's not justice. You know what justice is, God? I'm going to tell you, Abraham says what justice is. Justice is if there are a handful of righteous people in the town, you're going to help them turn it around. You're not going to forsake those people. That's not your pledge to humanity, God. Abraham slams on the gates of heaven with this same type of approach, and he says, this doesn't work. And we learn, some of us learn together, that the Sadiq Mahriya, right? The righteous person demands, and the heavens follow suit. Because when a person has earned for himself a level of integrity and righteousness in who he is, but even more so in his or her actions.
I lost you.
Yeah, we all did.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll come back. Rachel, you take very good notes.
I don't usually, but I had my notebook and I know we did this a few months ago. So I'm like, all right, let me just review a little bit, you know?
And you have it on hand, that's the good part. Accessible.
You know what? I have one notebook that I put all my class notes in, even from all different classes. So
Yeah,
everything is contained in one spot.
wow,
I
that's
tried.
very good. You don't have.
I mean, I'm on my second notebook of it, but you know,
That's good.
I try.
Mm-hmm. Where is he?
I try. Oh, it looks like maybe he went off to come back on.
Probably. Is everybody else on? I mean, us?
I mean, I see boxes.
Oh, okay. So then they're on. I just have my audio on.
Oh, you know, I'm on my computer. I do see boxes.
Hi, I can see you guys.
Okay, good, Ray. Good.
Hi.
See.
Okay, good.
I think there's 9 people on.
Oh, good. Oh, I feel bad. Should we? All right, let's see. We'll have to be patient. So I was thinking of Moshe also, like to be when he was praying. Was he like persistent?
That's true. He was always persistent.
Right. He
Yeah,
stuck up for the people.
yeah.
He didn't he yell at Hashem once? He said,
Yeah, I think when Hashem wanted to, wait, didn't Hashem want to kill him or something?
yeah, but
And
then wait, he said, what are you, am I the mother of these something or other of these people?
Oh, yeah,
You could give me the, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, when was that though? I was trying to think.
Yeah, let's see.
Wait, when was that? He said, I don't want it to be, you know, you,
When, oh,
Hashem was gonna cancel
when the people were
complaining.
when they were complaining, and then he was getting upset, and he said, you know what?
And then Hashem wanted to destroy them.
Right. No, he said,
Yeah,
what are
because
you
then,
giving me the job for? I'm not the, I don't know, something like that.
yeah, right. I don't want to be the head of the nation.
Right, right. I'm not the mother of these people. You just threw it in my lap, like type of thing. We're giving our own Bible class. I don't think that's so great. Oh, there's Ricky.
Is he? Oh,
You guys still there?
We
Yes.
need you, Ricky. We're stumbling.
Huh?
We're
Okay.
trying to figure out. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Mark, how did you get it back?
They just put you on regular LTE. If you want regular phone service then.
So I turned off the internet?
Turn off that.
Okay, fine. Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
So this idea of pounding on the gates of heaven, who else did it? You said Abraham did it. Who else did it?
I was saying Moshe,
Moshe Rabbeinu did it. Excellent. When did he do it?
when he was praying for the people, and also he was fighting for the people.
Right.
We're trying to figure out when.
Yeah, when he was fighting for the people, right?
Mhm.
After the chet, not the chet ha'egel, after the chet of the sin of the
Egel.
spawn, so on, or they were complaining when God
Complaining, right.
wiped the people out, and I'm going to make you a you, right?
Yeah. Didn't he say, I didn't give birth to these people, something like that, right?
Right.
Was that the part time?
From you. Good. So let me ask you guys something. When was what?
Wait, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Can-
Somebody has to mute
Yeah,
themselves.
someone needs to mute, yeah.
Oh, I hope it's not me.
I think we're good now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So when was the last time anybody on this class banged on the doors of heaven? When was the last time any of us did that?
Ne'ilah, maybe.
And did anybody do it? Banging on the
I
doors
was
of
gonna say every 5 minutes, no?
may be true. It may be true, but tell me. So explain.
So,
What does it mean? What does it mean?
I don't know. I feel like I've had some conversations with the God where it's like, okay, like time to step up, like it's enough.
So banging on the doors of heaven, yeah? Demanding.
Demanding.
Demand.
Yeah.
That's what it means, right? It means to demand. And when so how does that work? How do you do that? Demand something from a parent? How does it work that someone can demand something from someone of much greater authority who's given them so much? How does that work?
I think you have to be very clear in what you want, and not wishy-washy, and be very courageous, I think. Assertive.
Right. But we have to
Passionate.
do it, right? Diane, we have license to do it, right?
Yeah, we do.
We do. And what's the underpinning of it? Gives it legitimacy and justification.
Is it
I think it's
trust?
passion, no?
It's passion and, yeah,
Passion and love. Love.
Trust?
what's that?
Trust?
Trust, yeah, and what else? What else?
A feeling of unconditional love.
I think it goes something like this. I think it's all of those, but with one other major caveat, and that is, God, listen, I'm here. I'm front and center. I'm teeing up for this thing. And I'm going to put my neck on the line here. And I expect and I demand that I get the support I need. And guess what? If my neck is being put on the wrong line, let me know. But I'm not going to sit back and say, do it for me. That's not banging on the doors of heaven. Banging on the doors of heaven says, I'm doing it. Now you got to step up too. Mordechai puts his life on the line more than once. He puts his life on the line. He puts his credibility on the line. The other rabbis were against him. They say that Mordechai, as we talked about, was Yoshev B'Sha'ar HaMelech. Mordechai sat on the inner sanctum with the other rabbis who all went along with the Haman Achashverosh program. He was one of one. So when I bang on the doors of heaven, I say, listen, God, now we're moving here. We're changing. We're building something different. And I'm telling you, I'm leading this thing, right? Abraham,
I'm committed.
God, not behind him, not on his side. Abraham Avinu would walk before God, right? What does that mean? I'm leading the charge. But let me tell you something, God. If I'm leading the charge, I want 110% of your support. I want to support. And you know how I want to support? I want to know. I want you to give me insight. I want you to give me depth of understanding. And I want you to give me courage because I'm banging down your door and then I'm going to bang down their doors. And this is the Mordechai model. And when you say Ben Kish, Nakash, pound, it's a very, very strong term. So do we have the opportunity to do so? Yes. Do we have the obligation to do so? Yes. Let's use, what would be a couple of practical examples when someone would do this? Practical example, when someone would say, I'm going to bang on the gates of heaven and I'm going to break through. What would be an example?
If somebody's not well and you want Hashem to help heal them.
What else?
Any example, any challenges, any strong challenge that we face in our life that we can't do alone. We need God's help.
So give me an example.
I don't know, like Hannah, for example. Hannah.
Great. Did Hannah demand of God? That's a great example. Did she demand?
I'm not sure if she demanded, did she?
She sure did.
Oh, she did. Yeah, she cried and right.
And she said, listen, God, I'm putting everything else on the side. I'm not putting my faith in anything else, right? She was absolutely raw and she stripped her heart of everything else. And she said, it's me and you, God. It's me and you. And
but didn't she also,
what?
but didn't she also, like, I feel like she's a great example because I was thinking before what you were saying. She pounded on God's door, ultimately for God what she wanted. Like there's always also an element when we're asking for things I've heard this before, like to flip it, that it's something that we're giving back to God. It's for us, but there's a holier, like a higher, level to it, to what we're asking.
But does that have to be? Do I have to temper my ask with that? Or not?
I don't.
So you're saying, do I have to give something back? Or
No, I'm saying like Hannah wanted a son that she could devote to God. No, like that was a very big piece of her ask.
So how did she ask it?
I think she wanted a son first. And then she decided, Hashem, I want a son, and you know what? I'm going to devote it to you. I think.
That's exactly how she did it. She wanted a son first. And she said, you know what? Give me the son, and I'm going to dedicate him to your service. By the way, what if Shemuel, her son, said, I don't want to do it? What if he said, I don't want to do it? Could he have said that?
No.
Of course he could have.
He could have? Oh, he could have?
Of course he could have.
But the deal was made already.
Huh?
The deal was made.
Okay, but can he back out? Can somebody back out of a deal? Can somebody change a deal? Of course they can. He's an individual. His mother said, Shemuel, I'm going to put you by the shofet of the time. I'm going to put you by whoever it was, let's say Eli. I'm going to put you there for training. But at the end of the day, like anybody else, he's going to choose the life he wants to choose. So what Hannah was demanding, what she wanted, and she ultimately wanted a son who would serve God. But at the end of the day, there was no guarantee to that. There's no guarantee.
But I don't think that, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't take away from her ask.
Exactly. That's right.
We're not responsible for.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
So my ask could be more my ask than mine and God's ask. When Moshe Rabbeinu says, no way you're wiping out the Jewish people, he didn't say that I guarantee you that the Jewish people are going to all be religious for the rest of time. He didn't say that. He said, these are your children. They're going to make plenty of mistakes. Better. When Abraham Avinu, right, when God shows him that he's going to have a lineage, that he's going to have children, right? What does Abraham challenge him with? He says, but I want to tell you something, God. My kids aren't all going to be perfect. They're not all going to be like me, and I don't know what they're going to be in terms of their relationship to you. But I want to promise today that if they're my children, you're going to keep them in the fold. And even as far away as they get, you're going to give them the opportunity to come back at some point in time. That's what Abraham demands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't tell him, okay, give me a son, and I'm going to guarantee you that all my kids are committed to you forever and ever. He tells them the chances are they're not going to be.
Wow. Okay.
But tell me that you're staying with me. Does that work?
Are we asking for God's help in or direction? I mean, or is that weakening? I'm not. So we're asking for something, but there's no guarantees. That's what you're saying.
I would put it as more. We want help and direction, but we want a breakthrough. I think it's about a breakthrough. It's about pounding the pavement for a breakthrough, pounding the desk for a breakthrough. I think that's what we want. And I think we got to use that tool. We got to use it, pound and demand. And we have every right to do that. You know why? Because we're committed to God and we're committed to this lifestyle. We're committed. So if I'm committed and I'm committed to growing, I need more from you. And that's.
Yeah. Wow. That's a little scary-ish, not scary, but like, it's like demanding, it's like,
If one of your children or one of your colleagues came to you and said, listen, I'm gonna attempt these next big steps in my life. But I'm not gonna do it unless you change your perspective and give me the room I need to grow. Assuming the person's not doing something bad, right? Unless you change your perspective and give me the room to grow. And you see the person standing in front of you and the person is serious and it's a real effort. What are you gonna do?
I'm going to give them a chance.
They're going to give him the chance, right?
Yes.
But he's demanding that you change your perspective for something that's not a given, that may or may not happen, right? But
not everybody would do that. I mean, there are certain people that are very, they're very controlling. And they're not going to give it up. And there are certain people that will say, you know what, I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to go the extra mile and I'm going to really, really pound that, breakthrough.
Excellent. So you're saying that a number of parents would not do it, you're saying?
Yeah, some people, I don't know about parents, but some people, I'm thinking of reality, because it may sound, like I'm demanding of you. It could be disrespectful, but you're saying you're coming very sincerely and asking for something that you feel that will work, not could, will.
Sincerely, and I'm demanding support. I'm demanding your support. Again, outside of what the values and the perspectives that we cherish, not talking about that. But we're talking about, I'm going to give you a perfect example. I had a conversation with someone a couple of years ago about a son who, and this is so typical, so excuse the trivialness of the example, but it's not trivial when you hear some of the core points. Someone who had chosen a more religious lifestyle than his parents. So kid is my student, and over the years, he chose a more religious lifestyle, right? And is a gorgeous kid, marries a fabulous girl. and they're scraping together a living between what he's earning and what she's earning. And really what he wants to do is study. He wants to study full time. And that's what makes him happy. That's what makes him happy. Now, because he has a beautiful presence and he has stature and he can articulate well, he's going to be one of those kids, in my opinion, one of those young men who becomes a leader. He won't be a teacher. He'll be a head of school. He won't be another rabbi in the room. He'll be the head of a synagogue or more. He's got, and with great respect and love, he attempted to move his father in that direction because that's what he wanted. And that's what makes him happy. And by the way, it's all good stuff. And this sounds like a trivial case. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because there was absolutely no way that the father was allowing this, to a point where he told him he wants him to be a cashier in a store rather than doing this. And then he told him if he's going to stay religious, he needs to wear colored clothing and not just gray and white or black and white. Now, I understand his fears, but what I didn't understand and don't understand till this day is this is a person who searched, very serious guy, and found what makes him happy. And what makes him happy happens to be a core Torah value. And this adorable little girl who he married happens to have the same value. And that's what makes him happy. So what are we doing here? So when he came to you pounding on your doors, how can you, I told him at the end of the day, if your son is in business and he's unhappy, is that your success as a parent? He's not looking to be a gambler. He's not looking to sell drugs. He wants to do something very much in line with our core values that makes him happy. And guess what? Your model does not. So what do we want? What do we want? We want a happy child, right? Now, Kivyachol, so to speak, God does the same reasoning. He says, this, my dear child, right? This beautiful Jewish person believes in something, wants something. It's something good. He may or may not succeed. It's risky. It's hard. They're going to struggle. But you know what? They're banging on the doors of heaven because that's what they want. And that's what we want to be doing. We want to articulate what we want, and we want to bang on the doors of heaven. It says that Mordechai sat in the Hatzer HaMelech, that Mordechai reached a level where he didn't get into the house of the king, but he was immediately outside in the garden. And why does the Megillah tell us that? Rachel, you remember from when we learned this? You had the other stuff.
If we're saying HaMelech is Hashem, right?
Right, yes.
So like you said, banging on the door, it's like a little symbolic in the garden. You're really right outside. You're right up there, like very close.
Right there. It was right there. And where were the other rabbis? They were nowhere to be found. So, the Mordechai, Kish, us, we want to continually search for who we are. And when we think we got something that we believe in, we want to demand that God supports us. And then how does the pasuk end? And we'll wrap up with this. Ish Yemini. What does that mean? He's muhtar, our rabbis write, b'nimusim. He had nimus. He was warm. He was welcoming. He was engaging. What? A person who's fighting the ultimate fight, the greatest battle, isn't filled with hubris, isn't filled with a disproportionate sense of self or a disregard for the people around him. You're going to tell me he's Ish Yemini, he's Muhtar b'nimusim, He's crowned with good good traits.
Energy, yeah.
Is that chen? You would say, would you characterize it that way?
Is that what?
Is it chen or no? Is it different?
It's very nice. It's chen in your face.
But like more, yeah, okay.
Right. Chen, it's chen. Chen can be passive. This is, I know I have the chen. I know how important it is, that warmth, that charisma. I know how important it is. And I'm going to be top of mind using it.
Mm.
And that's who Mordechai was. So, in memory of my beautiful father-in-law, who I loved very much, who was a really, really wonderful person, and I want to thank you all for joining today. It was very, very, very nice, and I hope that we can be considered ish, we can be considered leaders, people who break out. We can be Yehudi. We can pine for the core values that we know are right, even when the distinctions are subtle. When we can champion in the great forums, right? I'm not afraid to champion anywhere. I'm not afraid. I want to be a person who brings new and greater levels of freedom. Freedom of awareness, freedom of sensitivity, freedom to love and care for another, freedom to serve God on a different level. I want to be a purveyor of knowledge, a purveyor of understanding. I want to be unafraid. And I have to tell all of you, people who are so dear to me, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to all of you. I want to be unafraid to pound on the gates of heaven. I want to be unafraid. I want to know I want to champion. And I want to be unabashed in doing it. God, you better get on board with me here. You know why? Because this is about creating that. This is not what happens when the soul leaves the body. This is what stays with the soul forever. And finally, Ish Yemini, person of great nimusim, fineness, and soft-spokenness and character. That's what we should all strive to be.
That was great.
And Nishmatot, you all, I really appreciate it. Good things.
Our condolences, please, okay? To
Yeah.
James. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank